I know there are some parents here tonight who are facing the prospect of one or maybe more of their kids graduating from high school. I know we've got other high school ages here, but I was sitting with a lot of graduates at our table here, and by the way, it was an honor to do that and hear about all of their exploits and plans for the future. Our oldest daughter is graduating. Megan's graduating this year. She's going to go to the U of S. She's graduating from the Swift Current Comprehensive High School, and I'm not handling it very well, frankly. My wife says I'm a bit of a wreck. I can't believe, and I'm sure you share this, parents who have graduating students who have already seen some of your children graduate. I cannot believe how fast time has gone. It seems like yesterday, not 17 years ago, that nurse placed Megan in my arms. I remember it very clearly. There was a lot of crying and a lot of drama, and then the nurse settled me down. I can't believe it's been so many years since Megan and I would sit on the floor playing Polly Pockets. Parents and some of the students may not want to admit remembering playing with Polly Pockets. Someone did. I can speak for a lot of dads out there who might have tried this about this plain fact that if you can get those little latex clothes on Polly Pockets, you can do anything, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to miss Megan in our house. She's got a great sense of humor. She keeps things down to earth. She keeps things grounded in our house. I remember one day, shortly after the election, we were all feeling pretty good about winning that election. I was feeling excited about the role that I had, and I drove home one day from Regina and walked in the house and was kind of in a demanding mood or something. I can't explain it, but I started ordering everybody around, having just walked in the door. I told Tammy she put too many onions in the chili, and Megan should be doing her homework, and Coulter should be practicing his guitar, and finally Megan set down her pencil and said, "Dad, when you are in this house, you are not the premier." We're going to miss her. She puts up with a lot from me. I have asked her to be able to work out with her. She's into the Jillian Michaels yoga meltdown. And I got to tell you, I've tried it with her, and there's a special brand of humility that comes with doing yoga with your daughter when you just can't keep up. I'm good at one pose. I'm good at something called the mountain pose, which is standing. Pretty good at that. We've thought a lot about her graduating and hoped as parents that we didn't make too many mistakes parenting. Maybe some of you share that sentiment. We hope we've done some of the right things for her as parents as well. The American journalist Hodding Carter said, "There are only two lasting bequests we can hope to give our children. One is roots, and the other is wings." Students, you are already off to a very good start in terms of roots, as evidenced by you being here tonight and by the support you have from your family where your roots are, and from your community where your roots are, from the organizations and associations you've had where your roots are. And as for wings, well, you've got a pretty good start on those too. You've got your wings already from your parents and their teaching, from your siblings, especially from your teachers and from your coaches, from maybe your church youth group or all of the other organizations you've been a part of and learned a little bit from. You've got your wings from that. You're off to a good start. I like to read historical biographies in my spare time. Biographies of successful people, and not just politicians, but those who've had success maybe in business or maybe in the charity work that they have set out to do. I read those biographies to see what goes into strong roots and effective wings. And there are four qualities or four traits that I've noticed. There are many actually in successful people, but there are four I want to focus on tonight very, very briefly. Number one, the stories that I've read seem to point to the fact that these leaders, these successful people, have been goal setters. They haven't shied away from setting very specific goals. Many of them are visualizers. They give themselves little tools to visualize success, or maybe they picture themselves in the place they want to be and work towards that subconsciously and consciously, and then one day they're at an event like this, and they're reaping the benefits and the awards of that goal setting. In 1990, Jim Carrey, the pretty famous Canadian comedian, was struggling professionally and personally. He was trying to break into the comedy scene in Los Angeles. He was having trouble. So one day he wrote a check to himself. The check was for $10 million. And for those of you who don't yet have checking accounts, checks have the place where you write who they're for. So he wrote it to himself. They have the amount. He wrote $10 million. And then there's something called the memo line. And the memo line is part of the check where it says, what is the check for? And in the memo line, Jim Carrey wrote, for acting services rendered. And then he post-dated the check 5 years. In other words, 5 years in the future, he stuck the check in his wallet and looked at it every now and then. Or maybe looked at it more often than that. In 1995, 5 years after that, or about then, Carrey had 2 films released, Batman Forever and the second Ace Ventura movie, which wasn't as good as the first Ace Ventura movie, if you guys seen it. Anyone who's been to Pirates 4D knows that sometimes movies should just stop. But still, he was paid $5 million for each of those movies. $10 million. And he happily tells that story. And you know, Jim Carrey had his wings then, but he never forgot his roots, because shortly thereafter his dad died. And so at his funeral, Jim Carrey took that very worn out old check and put it in his dad's casket. His dad had always been supportive of him, even when others thought he ought to give up and maybe get a real job. I have had a little bit of experience, though haven't achieved as much as those I've read about. I've had some experience with the importance of goal setting, I can tell you. And I know you all have. That's why you're here tonight. I've visualized myself on election night, November the 7th, 2007. I kind of visualized the room we'd be in and the tie I might wear. And thanks, by the way, over here for those who said they liked my tie. I left home, when I left home this morning, there was some controversy around the tie. But I did my own visualization. I pictured the reporters that would be there and even heard what they might be reporting if we were lucky enough to have earned the support of the people of Saskatchewan. I believe in goal setting and visualizing, and I think you should too. I think you might be doing it already, students. The second characteristic of successful people that I've noticed that seems to be prevalent in all of these stories is humility, is a humble spirit. Humility comes from the Latin word for earth, humus. It means grounding. One of the most famous people from this area of this province, from the city of North Battleford, is Brett Wilson. Brett Wilson got into the oil business early on after going to the University of Saskatchewan. He did very, very well in the oil business, and now he's managing one of the largest financial investment fund organizations in the country. He was on a very successful TV show, CBC's Dragon's Den. He's now filming his own show. It's called Risky Business. He's from right here in North Battleford, and here's what he said. Great leadership is humble. I'm quoting. Great leadership is humble, understands the value of humility, and at the same time is willing to take action with courage. Brett's become a friend, and what Brett's saying there is that you can set bold goals, and you can set out to do impressive things, and you ought not to shy away from having those audacious goals for you and for others. But you can do those things and still be. In fact, you should do those things and still be humble. I believe that true leaders, the best among us, the most successful people, don't take themselves too seriously. They leave that to others. That just means that if you're set out to achieve certain things and you stay humble and you just achieve them, you don't have to take yourself too seriously. Your achievements will have others taking you seriously. We have to, each of us, embrace moments where we're reminded of the importance of humility and humor at our own expense. A little self-deprecation is a good thing. I've had many reminders since I had this job. Just last week we were in southeast Saskatchewan where it's very wet and flooding, and we were in a community and we were visiting a long-term care home. They're going to get a new long-term care home pretty soon. We dropped by the old one, and we were met by the nurses and the staff there who were wonderful, and they said, the residents can't wait to meet you. The Premier's never been here before, and they can't wait to meet you, and so I was already starting to feel pretty good. Well, this is going to be nice. The residents can't wait to meet me, so bring them on. So we went around the room, and the very first wonderful lady I stopped at, I knelt down to chat with her, and we just started talking about the residents and about her and a bit of her history, and we were having a great discussion, and then she said, "Who are you?" And I said, "My name is Brad Wall." And she said, "What do you do?" And so I told her that too, and it was a wonderful reminder. Last spring, we were on a trade mission in China and in Japan. Saskatchewan's become an increasingly important trading partner with China, as many of you will know. And so we were there with two other premiers, one from Alberta and one from British Columbia, and we were promoting the province of Saskatchewan. And China was very interested in our representation there because they're interested in our potash, and they're interested in our pulse crops and canola, and you name it. And so we were getting the royal treatment. They're interested in our oil assets that we have in Saskatchewan. And so we went to visit the China National Petroleum Corporation, this giant office building in downtown Beijing. We pulled up in our car, and I got out. There were two soldiers from the Chinese People's Republic Army, and they had white gloves and dress uniforms, and I got out of the vehicle, and they snapped off a salute. I thought, well, that's something. Walked into this big, beautiful building, and there in the lobby, we were met by the senior officials of the company, and on either side of this marble lobby were giant signs, electronic signs. And they said, on this side, they said, "Welcome, Premier Brad Wall from the province of Saskatchewan." And on the other wall, they said it was the same thing in Mandarin, although we actually never knew for sure, but that's what they said. And so I was also feeling pretty good about that. Phoned home that night to some of our senior staff. The legislature was still in session, and told one of my friends who was also working with us, I told him the whole story. I said, "You're not going to believe it. I got saluted here. My name was on this giant sign," and without a word of a lie, he said, "You know what? Here at the legislature today, there was a protest. So your name was on some signs here as well. And by the way, quite a few of the people seem to be saluting you." We better be able to laugh at ourselves. So the third characteristic of most successful people that I have read about is they never stop trying. They never, ever, ever give up. Here, I'm in politics, so here's a couple of political examples. This person ran twice for a seat in the House of Commons. In the 1925 election and the by-election the following year, he ran twice for a seat in the provincial legislature, where I have the honor of working, in 1926 and 1938. He ran for mayor of PA in 1933, lost all of them. Lost all 5 of them, and most of them he lost badly. So he put his name forward for the leadership of his party in 1942 and again in 1948, lost both times. And in 1957, he became the Prime Minister of Canada. He's from Prince Albert. His name was John George Diefenbaker. He wouldn't quit. He wouldn't say die. Here's another. He lost his first bid to win a seat in the Illinois legislature before being elected to the State House in 1834. He lost his bid for Speaker of the House. He was defeated in the next election. He lost his nomination for the U.S. Congress in 1843 before winning his congressional seat in 1846, which he in turn lost the nomination for 2 years later. He ran twice for the Senate, lost both times. He ran to be the Vice President, lost that too, and in 1860, he became the 16th President of the United States. And his name was Abraham Lincoln. And in 1863, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. He freed the slaves. And in 1865, the war was over, and North America has never been the same since. He could have given up. He could have stopped trying, and things would be markedly different even here today than they are. Mr. Lincoln, I happen to be well, I won't say a student of his. That gives myself too much credit, but I'm an enthusiast. He never lost his focus. He was a goal setter. He never lost his sense of humor. He was very self-deprecating. He used to think he was not a very handsome man and used to make several remarks about it. In fact, one time his nemesis in public debate, Stephen Douglas, accused him of being two-faced in the debate. And Abraham Lincoln looked at him and said, "If I had any other face to wear, don't you think I would try that one out?" He never, ever gave up. And finally, and this is the last point, the last characteristic, I think, of successful people, he was interested in his objectives and his goals, not just for his own fame, not to make a lot of money, but to serve, to leave things better than he found them. And students, that's the most important part of all of this. You ought to focus, you ought to be humble, and you need to be able to never give up, but you need to make sure it's not just about yourself. If there's some self-satisfaction, that's great, there should be. But make sure that in all of this, you maybe are serving others or bringing some satisfaction to somebody else. I ran across this YouTube video. I'd like to share it with you tonight, and then I'll just wrap up.
What's the question? Is it difficult? Is it going to make me laugh?
This had better be a good question.
And my question is?
My biggest what?
Biggest regret.
My biggest life regret.
That's a hard question.
My biggest life regret.
My biggest life regret.
Oh, God.
That's very personal.
Biggest life regret.
Oh, my God.
That's a rough one, huh?
Well, I wanted to be an opera singer. Regrets not learning to drive when I was younger.
I should have been playing blues. I should be singing blues, right?
You just regret the things you don't do.
Not to attend college on campus.
I just try and do as many things as I could think of, I guess.
Not picking up guitar at a younger age.
When I just came into this world as a baby, my dad didn't present me with a bank account of €1 million.
Probably not enjoying college a bit more than I should have.
Not buying into the banks years ago and selling in time.
Not immigrating sooner.
And I did not win the lotto.
I don't think I have one.
Only coming to Ireland for a week.
Not coming to Ireland when I was a lot younger.
That was mine. You suck.
I don't have any. No, none at all, no.
And I mean, honestly, I don't have any regret. I'm probably one of the luckier ones.
Not having stayed in college longer.
Man, I can't answer that question.
Not taking enough deep breaths and enjoying the moment.
Not continuing education.
Not living my life to the full, I'd say.
Not marrying that lass when we were in high school 50 years ago and letting her move off to Canada. And meeting her 50 years later and finally marrying her. We've been married 1 year.
By drinking.
Not spending enough time with my dad, who passed away.
That I don't get back to certain people when I should, okay? I'm not good at getting back to people, and sometimes it's important to get back to people, and I have a big fault with that.
Not going to visit my grandfather when I knew he was sick.
Did you hear what they were saying, everybody? There were not a lot of expressions of regret for things that they did. These were expressions of regret for things they didn't do. And they really ran the gamut, didn't they? Personal choices they made, their personal relationships, that they didn't go to school a little longer, maybe they didn't pursue the right profession, but it was the expression of regrets that they didn't do. The greatest failure of all is the failure to try and to have that regret. If someone stops you, students, in 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, your parents and your teachers, they want to make sure that you have no such regrets, that you have the ability to reflect on your successes because you set goals and you remained humble and you were determined to never give up, and because you were prepared to risk not just for yourself, but for others. Let me just close with this. You have received, and you are still receiving, for those of you still in school, your roots and your wings from your community and from your respective schools. And you've got something going for you tonight because you're coming of age at an historic time in the history of this province and in the history likely of the community that you're from. Something special is happening here that's going to give you even greater wings. Whether you decide to move away and come back or maybe stay, because of your parents, because of your teachers, because of the amazing natural resources that we've been blessed with, because of the fact that your Saskatchewan today has the answers to world questions on food security and energy security, and because Saskatchewan itself has been practicing, I think, those attributes of leadership. Not the government I'm not talking about, not the politicians. I'm talking about the province, focused on its own goals, staying humble, determined not to fail, understanding that it's about something more than the economy or money. This province has actually been practicing all those traits of leadership, and so this is a different place that you're coming of age in today. There's an old proverb that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. For a long time in this province, again, irrespective of politics, for a long time in this province, hope was deferred here. Prosperity was for some other place, growth was for some other season, promise was for some other time. And the heart of a province was, I think, sick, but not broken. For we have always known of the potential of this province, of the depth of our roots and the strength of our wings, and now the Saskatchewan that you're coming of age in, bequeathed to you by your parents and by your communities, is a place where hope is deferred no longer, where prosperity is for this place, where growth is for this season, where promise is for this time, and where the heart of a province is healed and strong and full and beats within each of you. So on behalf of that hopeful province, it is our sincere wish that each of you pursue your dreams. With focus and with humility and in an unselfish way, that your wings will soar higher, that your roots will sink a little deeper, that you'll live your lives with confidence and with purpose and with no regrets. Thanks for letting me come here tonight. May God bless the province of Saskatchewan.